What is good, YouTube, man? Welcome to episode one of the Last Whistle podcast, man. Today's episode one. I'm very excited to bring you guys this first episode and show some of my love for the game of football and a little bit of my expertise about the game. So, episode one, man, we are going to start. I'm going to start this series on the 2022 predictions for every individual team. We're going to start with the NFC East. America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, man. The Dallas Cowboys, obviously coming off of a very disappointing season. We all remember the last play and the Dak run and how that went. 12-5 record. And when you look at the regular season, this was a very good regular season team. This was a very talented roster last year that obviously underachieved, and losing to the 49ers and Jimmy G was not at all what Dallas Cowboys fans wanted or expected. So with that being said, the Dallas Cowboys had a 12-5 record, winning the division, the NFC East, or as some people like to call them, the NFC Least. They did sweep their division, man. That's 6 wins already off the bat. That's 6 of their 12 wins right there. That alone puts them at a 6-5 record, just sweeping that division. Like, come on. Yeah, the rest of y'all gotta be competitive. 7-2 on the road and 10-2 in the conference, man. So they basically handle business pretty much all the way around. Obviously not too well at home, which is surprising. I mean, if you have an amazing stadium like the Jerry World Playhouse, the billionaire Playhouse, like, come on now, man, you gotta play well. Let's look at the offensive side of the Dallas Cowboys, man. What I always think about when it comes to the offensive side is the quarterback position. That's the first thing that always comes out to me. And who is running the helm of the offense? Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott coming off one of the most gruesome injuries, missing 5 games, I believe, in 2020. Coming back last year, played, I believe, 16 games and played very well. 68.8% completion percentage, 37 touchdowns to 10 interceptions, 4,449 passing yards. But he did turn the ball over more than he has ever turned the ball over, fumbling the ball 14 times and losing 6 of those. So past years, the turnover numbers definitely weren't what they were this past year. Maybe this is an anomaly season for Dak in the turnover department, but hopefully he can, fix that up. And maybe, I mean, for a 12-5 record for a quarterback that's losing 6 fumbles, and probably not even counting some of the other fumbles from running backs, receivers, interceptions, I mean, to be able to win 5 games, that's pretty good. Considering that, I mean, Diggs was taking the ball away from every offense almost the full season. So, offensively, as a full offense, as a full unit, this offense was stellar, man. First in points per game at 31.2. Dak Prescott, like I just gave him credit for, they finished 3rd in passing yards with 291.9 per game and 124.6 in the rushing department. That put them at 9th. All right. So they were obviously a very talented offensive team. When you go and you look at the roster that they had, just to name off a few, I mean, you had Dak, you had Zeke and Tony Pollard, you had Amari, you had CD, you had Cedric Wilson, you still had Dalton Schultz. They were very talented offensively, and of course, we always know the Dallas Cowboys for having one of the best offensive lines year in and year out in the NFL. All right. Now we get to the present time. There has been some changes, and there might have been some drastic changes that the Cowboys might not be prepared and equipped to deal with going into the season, such as the loss of Lyle Collins and Connor Williams. These are 2 guys who Lyle Collins as the offensive line talent was phenomenal. Connor Williams played very well himself. Well, let's start with Lyle Collins. Lyle Collins, in 671 snaps, 5 penalties and 2 sacks allowed. We shift to Connor Williams, 948 snaps, 15 penalties, 1 sack allowed. that tells you a lot based off of the amount of snaps and just the amount of sacks that these guys had allowed. And Connor Williams, I think, playing the guard position, probably dealt with a lot of the top defensive tackles, nose tackles in the league. You know what I'm saying? Lyle Collins, probably the same in terms of all around, defensive linemen. They move a bunch. You got guys coming off the edge now, these different 3-4 linebackers and things like that. So these two guys could be a potential big loss on the offensive line if these guys that they have drafted do not step up. Now, in this past draft, the Cowboys did address their needs on the offensive line, going out in the first round and drafting Tyler Smith, who is listed as an offensive tackle, but I believe they're going to probably move him to the left guard position, I believe. I just don't see a reason for him to, one, start over Ty Smith, unless Ty Smith is just, injury prone, then they can probably play him there if he's played well enough. But considering that Dak is a right-handed quarterback, that's his blind side, I don't necessarily know if they're going to have faith to just put him there immediately. They're obviously going to keep Ty Smith there and keep that going on. So, like I said, they did draft a tackle again in the 5th round. And they drafted Jalen Tolbert, who I'm pretty high on. So if he could come in and be productive, let's say he comes in and is CD level talent, that's very good considering that you have Michael Gallup and you have James Washington as well, and you still have Zeke and Tony Pollard. So if the draft picks produce what they should produce on the offensive side of the ball, when you look at this offense and you look at the talent, they shouldn't fall off too much. They should not fall off too much. The next thing I have to address about this offense is C.D. Lamb, man. Amari Cooper being gone. Is C.D. Lamb ready to be the number 1 receiver? I personally think that he is ready. I think that he's put in the work in the offseason. I think that he has seen a good amount of coverages and has seen a good amount of good to very good corners to be able to put up his own. I mean, we saw what he did against the Patriots, J.C. Jackson. They have some pretty solid DBs. He's had some big games. In 2020, I mean, what he did in 2020 as a rookie is very underrated for the main fact that he was catching balls from 4 to 5 different starting quarterbacks and still having 935 yards, 69 receptions, and 5 touchdowns. Then follows that up this past season, actually cracking 1,000 yards as a receiver and having, I believe, 5 to 8 receiving touchdowns as well. So Dak is going to be obviously looking for him to be the number 1, but I believe that with the guys that they have, getting James Washington from the Steelers, Michael Gallup coming back, they still have a lot of other targets that you have to watch. CD is going to start taking the Jalen Ramseys. He's going to start taking the Tre'Davious Whites. He's going to start taking those guys. But I believe that he's putting the work that he will be able to hold his own against the greatest defensive backs that we currently have in our league right now. With that being said, there is 2 sides to America's game. There is 2 sides to football. We now transition to the defensive end of the football, and the defensive end for the Cowboys is what I truly believe is what cost them that wild card round in the playoffs against the 49ers. I believe that, for one, the fact that this defense simply cannot stop the run given the talent that they have on the roster, especially on the D-line. When you looked at D-Law, D-Law is a run stopper. He's not typically your pass rushing end. He'll get his 8, 9, 10 sacks a season, but he's a run stopper. You got guys like Neville Gallimore. You got guys like and I apologize if I say this guy's name wrong, Osa Digizua. You got guys like, you have Micah Parsons, you have Wolf Hunter. There's no reason for you guys to not be able to stop the run. Why the 49ers should be going for 169. I know Debo is not no scrub, but that is a game that you should have won. And this has become a pattern for Cowboys teams not being able to stop the run. In 2020, these guys had the 23rd defensive efficiency in 2021. The Dan Quinn era starts defensively, and they go to ninth. Now, obviously, Micah Parsons being the just all-around dog that he is had a big part to do with that. Same with Trayvon Diggs. And the only thing that this defense has to shore up is being able to stop the run. And I don't know if they have made enough additions to be able to do that. They lost Randy Gregory this past offseason. They were able to keep Wolf Hunter. They were able to keep Dorrance Armstrong on the squad. Jayon Curse is coming in, as well as Malik Hooker. So these guys, maybe they're worrying about more the pass game than the run game, but I believe that if you have to be able to stop the run. You have to be able to stop the run. I understand this is a passing league now, and having a good corner and good secondary is essential, but if you start to see a trend here where you're starting to get the ball ran on you, and this is the reason why you're losing games, Jimmy G didn't beat you. You know what I'm saying? So you kind of have to take that into perspective, in my opinion. But with that said, on the defensive side of the ball, they made more moves to address what they need. In the second round, getting Sam Williams. I believe Sam Williams at Ole Miss. I believe that he is supposed to be the Randy Gregory replacement. If he holds up and lives up to expectations, being a second round pick. They went in the 5th round and got Deron Bland from Fresno State. Same with, I believe this is Damon Clark. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. A linebacker in the 5th round. In the 6th round, they got another linebacker in Devin Harper from Oklahoma. And in the 5th round, they got another defensive tackle in John Ridgway. Do pretty good drafting defensive tackles, getting another guy in the rotation there, possibly a run stopper, a big body that can clog the hole. So I believe that these are the moves that needed. These are good moves to address in the draft what was going on. They also brought aboard Dante Fowler. I don't know if that is going to necessarily be a big difference, considering that, Dante Fowler kind of hasn't really made noise in a couple years. But when you look at the defense, just when you look at the defensive talent names, you got D-Law, you got Fowler, you got Dorrance Armstrong, you got Osa Dikazua, you got Neville Gallimore, you got Micah, you got Wolf Hunter, you got Diggs, you got Hooker, you got Jayon Curse. You got a bunch of guys that can really fill a role and can really mesh and be very, very good. Now, obviously, some of these guys are going to have to play better than what they did last year. I believe Diggs definitely had to let up less yards. I'm all with the turnovers, but I would rather have a corner that barely gets tested and doesn't let the yards and pops up with 11 interceptions and the most yards let up out of any other corner or defensive player in the league. That's just my opinion. Before we move on, though, we are going to go through the 2022 schedule for the Dallas Cowboys. All right, so this is what we got. I got the Dallas Cowboys finishing 10-7. That is my 2022 prediction for these guys. I have them losing to Tampa Bay. I have them losing to Cincinnati. I have them beating Washington. I have them beating the Giants. I have them beating Washington. I have them beating the Rams. I have them beating Philly. I have them losing to the Rams. I have them beating Philly. I have them beating Detroit. I have them beating Chicago. Beating Minnesota, beating the Giants, losing to Indy, beating Houston, beating Jacksonville, losing to Philly the second go round. I have them beating Tennessee if and only if Malik Willis is the starter. I believe that Malik Willis by that point in the season will be the starter for the Tennessee Titans. I believe that Ryan Tannehill is on his last leg, is on very thin ice right now with the Titans organization and the coaching staff, and they're trying to find any reason to give that job to Malik Willis. Ryan Tannehill's on borrowed time. I believe Malik Willis will have that job by that point in the season. And I have them closing the season. I have them losing to Washington. Washington, I know that they got swept last year, but years prior always seems like they find a way to get a win off of the Dallas Cowboys one way or another. So you're splitting with the Eagles and you're splitting with Washington in your division. You're sweeping the Giants 10-7. could be enough for a two-time NFC East champion for the first time ever. We will see this upcoming season, but if that does happen, when you look at this Cowboys team, they might be able to say at the end of the season, when they look back and they look at the division and they look at their record going into the playoffs, they might be able to say, once again, for the second year in a row, we them boys. Cue the beat.